All right, Playmore fans, it is time for Season 4, and we are taking on the Mudkip Division. Very excited for this. Just got to talk about a few things coming from our previous seasons. P4G definitely did not have the ending or even the entire season I wanted whatsoever. Very rarely do I get a negative record, and that was the third time in my 8-year career of draft that I missed playoffs. So that's just straight up sad. So we're hopefully, no, not hopefully, we are bouncing back a lot better from this. And then additionally, just to go ahead and clear the air, because I know there's been a few comments, I know they were going to happen anyways. We were invited to the PPL. We wanted to be part of the PPL. The only issue is that our schedules just didn't line up. For the most part, our team is not able to move like back-to-back leagues as often as the rest of the crew in Joey, Nexus, Uzi, etc. It's good for their content, but unfortunately, balancing with the PM7 team, it's a little bit more difficult for that than us. Additionally, I was moving for work, so I just moved to Georgia now. And that was a long process. The guys had a lot of personal stuff going on in their lives for the PM7 team. And then obviously they also had the recent Gen 4 stream, and then John just hit 1 million subscribers on his channel. So there was just a lot of things going on to where our timeline didn't line up for PPL, unfortunately. But I was able to find this league in the Mudkip division, hosted by Muffins. So thank you, Muffins, for having us. Very excited overall. Some crazy tiering, in my opinion, but hopefully it makes for some amazing games and a just very solid season. So. To be clear, I really hope everyone that's already here has watched the original draft analysis video that went up on the Play More channel. All the guys spent a lot of time going on towards there between the graphics and editing with Guy and Landon. So I really appreciate everything they're doing. And then plus we're all extremely handsome and it's pretty entertaining. So, but this is for a full in-depth breakdown for more of like my own notes and thoughts on the draft, because obviously I was just reading off picks in the original video. Even though all the notes that John and Tyler read off are mine, I still want to give my own thoughts on the team and what went on live during the draft. So, I mean, just spoiler, we're gonna click through all the Pokemon. You can see they're all just shown right here. So, I mean, there is gonna be I guess spoilers if you haven't seen the entire video, because this is the entire roster. So we did have the 5th overall pick, and I did not expect Zamazenta Crown to make it. Zamazenta Crown shouldn't even be allowed. That's how I feel about it. It's kind of crazy. There were a few other Pokemon that I'm not really for being allowed either. Spectrier was on the board. And I genuinely thought I was going to be getting Spectrier, which did make it to the 5th pick. It's just I have to get Zamazenta Crown if Zamazenta Crown's there. I just have to. It has less counters than Spectrier. Even though I have a championship with Spectrier in Generation 8, I love the Pokemon as a whole. Would love to use it with Draining Kiss. Zamazenta Crown is something that's not going to be there for future leagues. I think Spectrier is more likely to be there in other leagues rather than Zamazenta Crown. So, had to go with the dog. And then other Pokemon, I'm not a fan of Urshifus being allowed. I don't think either of the Urshifus should be allowed in draft format. They're just extremely annoying and overwhelming. And then the last thing, I guess, would just be Palafin. But truthfully, I haven't experienced too many good Palafins, at least facing, so I'm not as against that. But I know a lot of people say, just choice ban and you can just be a nuisance every week. I mean, stats are insane, and having to switch out immediately isn't really too much of a hindrance for it. But so we took Zamazenta Crown. It's going to be named after my lovely dog, Blossom. Crazy Pokemon. Now, there's obviously one immediate downside in the fact that we can't hold an item, but I don't think it's that bad if you just consider this as a Mega Evolution, I mean, it's got the crazy legendary stats, which almost treat it like a just jacked out Mega to begin with. So, why would you not see it as any different, So we just have to be cautious of the fact that, spikes specifically in hazards are very annoying. Luckily, we 4 times resist Stealth Rocks, but we have to be careful of hazard stack against us because Zamazenta can't run heavy duty boots. Obviously, its amount of health that it's given is limited. There's a little gnat near my microphone. I'm trying to kill him. But Zamazenta, I mean, just the amount of bulk it has, like, you don't really have to worry too much about trying to let it heal up. I mean, it does get rest, but having to fit rest plus sleep talk, plus just the RNG of rest plus sleep talk is pretty annoying, which explains our next pick in a minute. But there's just very few counters to a stab body press from a base 140 that gets boosted upon switch in. Now, it is just the first time that we are coming out, so I'm very, very much expecting other teams to be carrying moves like Roar, Dragon Tail, Whirlwind to try and like remove this or a booster energy on Sandy Shocks. Just get it out of the way. Not only do they get a chance of, like Hazard Chip and everything if they have those on the board, but just removing those immediate boosts and those two Pokemon could really mess up my strategy. So that's something that could be pretty annoying. But outside of that, Iron Defense plus Body Press really just beats majority of teams. And then if they have a ghost type, obviously they're immune to body press, but we have a heavy slam that is stab and more than likely going to be a base power of 120 in most matchups, specifically against those ghost and psychic types that resist / are immune. Because Zamazenta is just a heavy doggo. Thanks to that massive shield that it has, it weighs a crap ton. So if Heavy Slam is base 120 power, then we get the stab. That makes it a 180 base power move, which is just very difficult to switch in. And it's automatically better than Crunch, which against those Psychic and Ghost types obviously was super effective. It becomes base 160 power. So not only is it less, but they are likely able to run a Colbur Berry in order to reduce the damage because it is a super effective hit. They do not have that benefit against a neutral steel type move in Heavy Slam. And even if for some reason they are weak to steel, because maybe it's like an Ice Ghost or something like that in Frostlass. Oh god, Frostlass is just getting destroyed even with a Resisted Berry. Obviously, once again, due to the higher base power, Heavy Slam is still going to be better. It really just depends on weights, though, at the end of the day, and what I'm clicking Heavy Slam against. Like, if it's very clear that the 1 to 3 Pokemon that I need to click Heavy Slam against compared to Body Press, if they have some heftiness to them, and the base power is, like, only, 80 or 60, then I might debate Crunch. I might have to figure out another route, but more than often, it's still just going to be Heavy Slam. But I do have still like Behemoth Bash available and things along those lines. So, because Behemoth Bash, if a neutral hit, it will be just 150 base power compared to the 160 of a super effective Crunch. So not terrifyingly different in terms of damage rolls. It might come down to it. It all depends on the calcs and prep. But in general, very few checks to this Pokemon. Its stats are insane. Just the fact that it has a 128 base speed stat too. It's just ridiculous. We already kind of force a Choice Scarfer against our team in most scenarios, especially once we picked up Darkrai as well at the 125. So we just have to be cautious of the Fire, Ground, and Fighting coverage, but luckily 2 of those in Ground and Fighting are traditionally and more commonly physical-based moves, which once we're boosting our defense, it becomes less of an issue unless they have a really high attack stat. And they're getting stab off of it. Otherwise, it's going to bounce off of us, and it's not going to be that big of an issue. Now, when it comes to special hits, whether it's Earth Power, Focus Blast, or it is that fire coverage, such as Flamethrower, Fire Blast, etc., we can still run this pretty specially defensively bulky, because, it's the exact same stat as its defense, which is amazing. 92 HP is great. More than likely, the HP will be maxed out almost every single week. It really depends on how much speed investment we need and specific defense investment in order to get a certain amount of damage with Body Press. But, it can take hits either way, and we just need to be able to be cautious of its amount of health, figure out when we want to get to that Dauntless Shield boost, but this thing is an absolute menace, and it's just going to be able to win both weeks, especially when I pair it with a special defensive Clefable. Really thought, I know this Pokemon probably could have sat another round. It just depends. There were a few Pokemon above it, such as Dragapult, etc., that would benefit from having a Clefable. But the fact is, Clefable with Unaware and just Clef in general does have a tendency to shut down some of these more annoying Pokemon. Like Urshifu Single Strike, obviously I resist both of its stabs. I know it gets Iron Head and Poison Jab, but at the very least, having a reliable fairy like that is beneficial there. And then when it comes to Spectrier, I do have Unaware, and with Spadef, this makes it a very, not reliable counter, but a decent counter just for them to be aware of Unaware, if you know what I'm saying. So, and additionally, Clefable is one of the few Pokemon that have Wish plus Healing Wish. Unfortunately, Heal Bell is only given to Chimecho in this generation, and Aromatherapy just doesn't exist. So if we want to remove burns and paralysis on our Zamazenta, we have to do it via Healing Wish. Because, I mean, getting up like a Safeguard or something beforehand is stupid and not reliable. To where I don't have to rely on Rest on Zamazenta either. So that's the big benefit there. I have Wish with Baton Pass and Healing Wish as well. I was actually going to strongly consider Alan Wamola at one point just because of how reliable that thing is at Wish Passing. But that went round 2, like very early round 2, because there's the dude that drafted like Semi-Stall, which is something. But it's a reliable Pokemon for them, but Clef is such as a reliable Pokemon with me. Once again, another Pokemon I have a championship with. I absolutely love this thing. It's probably my favorite fairy type in Draft League format. Iron Valiant is the best in terms of the amount of points and what it's capable of doing, but that's really only from an offensive standpoint. Clef is primarily from a defensive standpoint, but still has offensive capabilities because of Magic Guard plus Life Orb. So even though it only has the base and 95 special attack with Magic Guard, I can ignore the damage I take from Life Orb, and my opponent doesn't see it, so they aren't sure what item we are unless they clearly do the calcs. And then Clef has amazing Gen 1 original normal type like coverage. So I have Flamethrower, Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, and then obviously Stab, Moonblast, Shadow Ball, Focus Blast, etc. Like Clef's Moon Pool is just so amazing, and that's what makes it so good in draft. I mean, not only is it like good specially defensive bulk, and it can still be physical bulk. Like overall, you're not overwhelmed by Clefable's stats. But just depending on how you're able to invest it each week, makes it that guaranteed wall, makes it that annoying Pokemon for teams to deal with, and it's just a huge threat. Also, with the addition of Heavy Duty Boots, you cannot tell if I'm Magic Guard or if I'm Unaware immediately. If I run Unaware with Heavy Duty Boots and they have hazards on the field to try and figure out if I'm Magic Guard or not, that's not clear. So if they don't immediately consider that off the board, they can easily mess up like my potential ability and just set up in front of me when I'm Unaware, which could allow me to Calm Mind or Cosmic Power set up and just beat them then and there because they just, did not determine the correct situation. But the amount of just utility on Clefable is amazing. We do get knockoff to get rid of items, which is great. We have Encore. We do have dual screens, although that's very unlikely that I run that specifically on Clefable because we do have other options. It is something that is there. We do have Moonlight for self-healing in case we don't want to run Wish and... I'm not going to say Healing Wish because Healing Wish is the complete opposite of self-healing. But more than likely, we're still going to run Wish just because of the benefits for the rest of the party. First Stealth Rocker, which is huge. I think it's always great when you don't get a Steel type that has Stealth Rocks, which there are a few, and it's pretty unfortunate. You have to pick up one of those non-traditional typings that have Stealth Rocks. Non-traditional meaning not a Steel type, not a Rock type, not a Ground type, because those are very often the ones that carry it. But then you do have like the Fairy and Clefable, the Normal type in the Dunsparce, the Psychic type in Mesprit and Uxie, and Azelf. So just small things like that I think are good to make up for it because hazards are huge in singles at the end of the day. We all know that Heavy Duty Boots are an amazing item and they're run a lot, but hazards can just change the game entirely, especially if you have a momentum-based team. So, and then of course we have Thunderwave because Thunderwave is funny. And Trick is good as well for certain sets on Clef. You can run Choice Scarf with Unaware to ignore their boost, and then you outspeed them just because you still need the Scarf because you're only 60 base speed. And then you can lock them into a move and beat them from there. You can also run Trick with Magic Guard with Sticky Barb to really help against some of their bulky walls that's traditionally run on stall type teams with Clefable. I mean, the utility is just through the roof. I really love this Pokemon. The setup potential with it is still there as well. And I think it's just a great pairing with Zamazenta. We only get one of the resist in Fighting type with Clefable to benefit Zamazenta. So that's not like tremendously a benefit in terms of defensive pairing, but just the fact of getting that initial wish support and all the utility options makes it very beneficial in the long run. So very happy to get Clef on the team and not to face a Clef during the regular season. So that's a win there. Now for the third pick, I was very, very upset that I got sniped to Greninja. I thought it was clear that I was going to get it. I said, okay, it's fine I get Clef in round 2 because 2 of the teams above us have dark types. If Gren goes to one of the other ones, it is what it is. Because there's still Darkrai, there's still Weavile, there's still Hisuian Samurott. And then as it went up, Hisuian Samurott went. And then it was just the one pick in front of me. I was like, sweet, I'm going to get Gren. I'm going to get the Frog for Playmore. This is hype. I love Greninja. I do amazing with it. It's one of the best Draft League Pokemon, period, just because of its utility. Its abilities are amazing, and its speed. But it went right before us. I don't blame the dude for getting Double Dark. I still complain about that, but the fact is, Double Dark is not a bad thing. I mean, heck, I had it in my GBA run with Hisuian Samurai and Roaring Moon. Dark types have only gotten stronger over the years, and Greninja is just something you really can't pass up on. Plus, his Dark type was his Terra Captain, although I kind of disagree with his thought process of they'll never be Dark because of Protean plus Terra. I mean, you don't know that, but either way, it's good for him, bad for us. But we were able to get Darkrai, which is honestly, at the end of the day, it works out. John wanted me to draft this instead, obviously, because Darkrai is just something that's never been allowed in Draft League before this generation. That wasn't Ubers, obviously. If you look between Zamazenta allowed and then Darkrai allowed, it does feel like we're in an Ubers league. But no, I just wanted to really get something that paired well for Zamazenta in terms of breaking through those Ghost and Psychic types. And Darkrai just does that. I mean, it's absolutely insane. We get another Elite Speed Pokemon with base 135 special attack. I know there's a lot of accusations going towards Darkrai in this generation of mid-cry, and we're hopefully going to be able to break those. Because, I mean, its special attack set is great. It has decent natural bulk with 90s on the defenses and 70 HP to where it can live most hits unless it's a really strong, super effective hit. And it has some great coverage. I mean, I'm sad it lost Thunderbolt. I don't understand why they did that, but it still has Thunder if I'm feeling wild. But I mean, in general, it's very good, and Bad Dreams is tough to play around, especially when we have other options on the team to help put Pokemon to sleep, apart from Hypnosis on Darkrai, because for those of you that don't know, you just run Hypnosis on Darkrai. Unfortunately, you can't run Dark Void just because it's less accurate. It's pretty dumb. After Smeargle and everything, they made the nerf where Smeargle couldn't even get it, but they still greatly reduced the accuracy from 80 to 50, which I think was just absolute stupid overkill because it just hurt Darkrai in general. But knowing how good it is with Bad Dreams, Darkrai probably wouldn't be allowed if Dark Void was still 80. So who knows? But I'm very excited to use this thing because of its breaking capabilities. Choice Spec sets are very strong. Life Orb sets can even run Nasty Plot, of course. Choice Scarf sets are pretty situational, but might be helpful just because I do have the 128 and the 125, to where I'm very much expected to face a naturally slower Choice Scarf Pokemon compared to Darkrai. So if I can catch them off guard with my own Choice Scarf, that's great. We do have Knockoff to remove their items as well. Even though it's something I probably won't run often on Darkrai because most of the time the coverage that he has is very necessary. We might run into 4 move slot syndrome. Knockoff is great for getting rid of Assault Vest, getting rid of Heavy Duty Boots so I can get chip off with the hazards on the rest of my team. Maybe they switch in with a Lumberry, which I guess wouldn't even really matter, but it's just things. And then we also have Haze to prevent setup in front of us. We do additionally have Taunt, which is great. Thunderwave Trick, Will-O-Wisp, he has utility too, which is great. I'm not forcing him to be just a breaker week in and week out. More than likely he will be a breaker and sweeper just because of the capabilities that he has. But if he needs to have 1 or 2 utility slots in order to set up Zamazenta or another potential sweeper, that I have on the team, then Darkrai is able to do that. So, very excited to use this Pokemon. Hoping to beat the mid-cry accusations. And in general, it's just crazy to see these two on the same team. So I'm very happy to use them. This is not Dark Devil anymore. That was a prototype nickname. It is Blackbeard. So we still do have some One Piece nicknames, as you can see. But I think Blackbeard with Darkrai is actually very cool. So, all right, round 4. We picked up Blastoise. One, it feels a little early for Blastoise. I mean, like, it technically would just go round 5, I think. But the thing is, I wanted a good Rapid Spinner that doesn't immediately just allow Spikes or Stealth Rocks to get up immediately right after. Now, I am upset that Glimmora got taken from me after I picked up Blastoise, so I had the chance to get Glimmora. But Glimmora with Mortal Spin is difficult. Like, it's good, but every single team is going to have Steel type. And I don't want my best form of hazard removal to be that easily walled. Ghosts are harder to come by, and if they have a ghost, then I'm able to put pressure on with Darkrai because I flip turn with Blastoise in, and now I get to click Choice Specs Dark Pulse without worrying about anything. So that was the thought process there. I also, Glimmora also would have been a fire resist, but, it's very likely to have ground coverage coming its way, which could be annoying. Glimmora just really helped against some of the fairies just because we obviously have a steel type that is neutral to fairy type moves, which is not ideal. And I love just the hazard potential in Glimmora. I love corrosion, etc. But we went with Blastoise, and I'm not completely upset about it. Flip turn is huge. I wanted to start getting momentum because of the amazing breakers and stuff that I do have. Another thing Glimmora didn't provide. And Blastoise is just one of those things where you have to prep for a defensive set and a Shell Smash set every week. Because it's just capable of doing that. And this is in the 10-point tier, so it is something that we can debate for Terra later on if we want to make changes to the team for Terra captains. I could do Blastoise plus Breloom, which is something I'm definitely considering later on. It really just depends on Gyarados plus Mousehold's performance, which I know Gyarados with Terra is just going to be a lot stronger, and if honestly I have Gyarados, or if I drop Terra on Gyarados, I'm more than likely dropping Gyarados as well. But Blastoise still does extremely well without Terra. It's just there's a few benefits more benefits for Shell Smash variants if I bring Terra with it. So, but it does get Haze and that flip turn, Rapid Spin, of course. Unfortunately, it did lose Scald, so it has to run like Surf or like a physical move in Liquidation or Waterfall or something in order to be able to do the damage it wants to. Does get access to Wave Crash as well for the really strong Shell Smash sets. You just have to be careful, of course, the damage you might be taking as you Shell Smash. And if you, obviously your defenses are lowered unless you're White Herb. So with Recoil on top of that, it could be a little too much. But that's why you have the option between special or physical, or even a mixed Shell Smash variant. So that's what makes Blastoise so hard to prep for, I feel like, in the most part. So unfortunately, it did lose some things throughout the generations. Like I mentioned, Scald, it doesn't have Toxic anymore, it doesn't have Refresh, but we still have like Roar for phasing, and I think Flip Turn makes up for a lot of it, honestly, just to be able to get momentum with this Pokemon. So very happy to add Blastoise to the team, and even though it's going to be pretty generic, and I think it might only come like, honestly, half the season, if that, just because we do also have another Bulky Water in Gyarados, to where it's going to make do when it does come. So just keep that in mind, because I love my Jinbei. Next, we have Sandy Shocks or Sandy Cheeks. I'm just calling it Cheeks, though, because that's funnier. And I've been wanting to use Sandy Shocks, so I'm not upset by this at all. I think it's a great Pokemon. It's something that, once again, we have an option to make it Terra at 12 points. Unfortunately, we would have to drop Mouthhold as the Terra Captain, and then it would only be Muck, or I'd have to make FAs in order for that to happen. Because, wait. No, I'm tripping. I can do Sandy Shocks plus Mouthhold. That's totally legal. I just couldn't trade in for a Pokemon higher than Gyarados is all I'm saying. So considering this is 12, that's 11. For Terra Captain, it's fine. But if I were to make a free agent, then it's not, because we're exactly at 0 points left over. But I could do that, because Sandy Shocks with Terra Ice is a monster. because it actually has no switch-ins then. Electric plus ground is great. Just be having another stab to pair with your electric type moves is good. You have a stab that can hit the dragon types that resist your electric type moves, the ground types that are immune to your electric type moves. The only issue is that obviously these stabs are just completely walled by grass types. And not all teams have bulky grass types. Some teams do have grass types, like they might have something similar to Breloom that's not bulky. And we're still able to get chip off at least on them over time. So something to consider there. But one massive thing is that these Pokemon stats are great. I wish they min-maxed a little bit more with the attack stat, to be completely honest, maybe more in the special defense, because in general, its speed and special attack are fine. 101 is an amazing speed tier. Just to outspeed those base 100s is huge, while still forcing like Garchomp or like 105s still be basically max speed is very nice for my team in matchups. Additionally, 80s with the 97 across the board, this Pokemon can live most hits once again. Like, it has good natural bulk and you can't sleep on it. You can't expect to one-shot it all the time. Like, it has that good strong potential to where unless you're an insanely like high attack or special attack based Pokemon, you're probably not going to be OHKOing me unless it's like stab with a boosting item and stuff like that. And just the utility is amazing. Obviously, main thing is a hazard lead in Stealth Rocks and Spikes. We do get both of those with 101 is good, but additionally we have Photosynthesis to where we can run Booster Energy, reduce our special attack to about half an investment if we're max investment in speed, the 330 and 331 mark, to where we can get the speed boost and we can automatically outspeed everything, get up Spikes and Stealth Rocks before a chance of getting taunted, before a chance of getting maybe outright KO'd, whatever it might be. That's very good there, and you don't have to be just Choice Scarf with hazards, which is very awkward. Another thing is we're worried about ground types. We can be Air Balloon to be able to avoid that as well and get up our hazards immediately turn one. Or it can just be a good, mid-game hazard user with like leftovers and stuff like that. It's not forced to be an off-the-rip hazard stacker. It's just really beneficial when I have a heavy amount of offense available to me on this team, which is something I definitely wanted to capitalize on compared to my previous drafts, which are definitely more balanced. I wanted to have more offensive capabilities, really have that bulky offense that I always say I strive off of. To where I'm able just to step on the gas in certain matchups and not be afraid to do it, because I was a little bit too passive last league, and I really want to change that more and really just focus on making the most progress I can to where my sweepers can clean up in the end game, or just not give a chance for my opponent to have the lead and force me to make predictions to come back, or I'm just making more progress than them every single time. So. Another thing is, this is probably a more realistic screen setter than Clefable, I think, just because of its speed tier. But we do have Light Screen plus Reflect available, and we can easily stack on that Light Clay. In terms of coverage, it's a little bit limited. Like, more than likely, you're just running Earth Power, Volt Switch, and then potentially Thunderbolt. And then you do have Power Gem as well. And then apart from that, that's kind of it. You can run Scorching Sands for bulky sets. We do have Thunder Wave available for being a nuisance. Body Press is also available for defensively bulky sets, which is very like matchup specific, but can be an option as well. And something that actually pairs well with like, I'll save it. But yeah, Sandy Shocks has a lot of potential. I'm very excited to use it. Good ground type early on too is always pretty important for my teams, so I do like that. Next up, we have our Bubby and Breloom. Very excited to use this Pokemon. I've wanted to use it for quite some time in draft. I'm trying to think if I ever have, and I feel like if I did, I drafted it in a league that died many years ago, and I wasn't able to use it like the full time. So now I'm very excited because, it has potential. And once again, it can be a potential Terra Captain because Terra Fighting Mach Punches, Terra Grass Bullet Seeds with Technician, I really do like the sound of that paired with Blastoise, so we'll have to see. And even then, Breloom could just be paired with Maushold if I'm just, once again, not sold on Gyarados, but we'll see. In terms of abilities, you do have Effect Spore, which is a little corny, but more than likely it's going to be Technician. And then in certain matchups, I might be Poison Heal with Toxic Orb just to run like substitute Spore sets, or like Focus Punch and everything like that. Or if I'm facing like an offensive ground type and it's okay for me to be infested in physical bulk, because special doesn't matter. Even if I resist it, Breloom's taking like 30% at least. And it's just not a counter to stuff defensively on the special side. Defensively, maybe, but situational. One item that does extremely well with Breloom now in this generation is Loaded Dice. Loaded Dice just allows those Technician-based Bullet Seeds to do crazy amount of damage. Because for when you have Technician with Bullet Seed, they are doing 37.5 damage instead of 25 for each hit. So Loaded Dice gives you a guaranteed 4 hits, potential in 5. And with 4 hits, you're doing, what is it? I did the math earlier. I think it's base 150. Yeah, base 150 power move. And if you get all 5, it's base 187. So, I mean, brother in Christ, why would I not run that? Choice Band Breloom is also a minutes with just Choice Band Mach Punch. And if you get a lot of hits with Bullet Seed with that, that's amazing. Choice Band Close Combat's crazy. Because when you look at this happy fella, you just don't expect base 130 attack stat. And, like, that's wild. Dude is strong, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm very excited to use this Pokemon. And one thing that really, like, swayed it for me over getting, like, an actual bulky, like, grass type and ground resist was the fact that I get the pair Spore with Darkrai Bad Dreams. I love that idea. So Spore Breloom with Bad Dreams Darkrai is very nice. I just have to be cautious of running, like, 2 potential sleep type moves because I can't spam it. Obviously, we do have Sleep Claws. If I were to put two separate Pokemon asleep at the same time, meaning one's already asleep in the back of the party, then I have to forfeit them there. I just lose the battle because I broke the claws. So I definitely have to be cautious of that because we're not playing on Showdown. It won't just, not immediately stop me from clicking it. It will put that Pokemon asleep that I'm facing in battle, and I can just lose them in there. But additionally, it gets access to, like, setup moves and Swords Dance. Unfortunately, it doesn't get Trailblaze. That really pisses me off. Because, like, 1, it gets boosted by Technician and it's Stab with Breloom. And 2, if he was able to boost his speed, he would just be so insane with Swords Dance plus Trailblaze. But, I mean, he would also cost way more. I don't even know if he'd be allowed to Terra at that point. But I think that just with all the Pokemon that got Trailblaze, even, like, some of the dumbest things in existence getting access to Trailblaze, you think Breloom would be able to get it. But whatever. Still having Toxic is amazing because now you just, once again, I can, instead of being, sub Spore with Poison Heal, because I'm fine with being Poison, I can be sub Toxic Poison Heal with Protect and Leech Seed. And just have no attacking moves and just make my opponent hate me. But, it's an option to run a bulkier variant and be really annoying, or a bulky variant with Mach Punch to where I still have the priority for support. At the end of the day, I wanted really strong priority because that's something that's going to help me against those Choice Scarf users and just help in general against potential sweepers that I might be facing that can break through, like, unaware Clef still, or I lose Clef early on. Having that other form of just countermeasure with strong priority and Mach Punch Technician is huge. So very excited to use Breloom. It has great capabilities, and it's the Bubby for this season. So, I mean, you gotta love it. The one thing I'm sad about, though, is I really love Shiny Breloom, but I can't run it because I want to keep it green for Bubby. So, next up, we have Big Fish, another kind of staple in terms of Shiny Magikarp for the John's channel. I love it so much. Gyarados is something I've not used in a very long time, but I'm excited to use it with Terra, and I'm hoping it does great work. In terms of Terras, just as a reminder, because I don't think I went through it, it's 1 to 3 captains, up to 20 points, with anything 13 points and lower, apart from certain Pokemon, some exclusions, such as, like, Ogerpon Grass, for example, Basculegion, things like that. To just Skeledirge, they just weren't allowed to Terra because they'd be too good, even though they weren't in that point tier. So Gyarados' example was for only 11 points, and Mousehold was for 7. So I still have leftover Terra points, it's just I don't have leftover points for the draft. So, but Gyarados, then additionally with your typings, you do 1 stab and then 2 additional. That's my favorite form for Terra. I think free Terra with Terra Preview is very cringe and shouldn't be allowed, so this is much just my favorite format in general for it. So we have Terra Flying as our stab, and then Terra Ground and Terra Dragon. Terra Ground just makes it because our Earthquakes are stronger, we're immune to the electric type moves that we're 4 times weak to, and we also resist the rock type moves that would otherwise be super effective. So From a defensive standpoint, it's a very free Dragon Dance because we're able to cover our weaknesses. And then we can also avoid Thunder Waves, which is great. And then just the stronger Earthquakes in general pairs well with it. Unfortunately, it's impossible to have Flying plus Ground because Gyarados doesn't have Bounce this generation or any physical Flying type move in general, which is baloney, which is why we have to run Terra Flying anyways to begin with. But still, Ground is very helpful there. And then Dragon. See, Dragon I was up in the air with compared to Steel, because unfortunately all of our Terra types are weak to Ice. So if I face something with Freeze Dry, there's just nothing Gyarados can do about it. It just has a bad matchup, unfortunately. But with Terra Dragon, one, we don't have a Dragon on the team, so it's pretty beneficial in that aspect where we get some of the resistances that Dragon does offer. And specifically, there's a few Rain teams that we might face that Gyarados has a really good matchup in Rain, resisting certain things if we are a Dragon typing. And we're still getting our stab boosted Water type moves in Rain. I felt like it was just the best option for Gyarados in this game. But don't be surprised if the Terra does change on Gyarados for Dragon in that selective aspect, because even though not many offensive Ice types were drafted, unfortunately we do face a decent amount. So the schedule just kind of bit us in the tail there. So it is what it is. But I think Gyarados' offensive capabilities, just with Terra, with Moxie and Dragon Dance, are very much going to outweigh the defensive potential. But it is still there with Intimidate. You have that amazing natural special defensive bulk with Intimidate to balance with that, to where you can become very bulky. You run heavy duty boots to not worry about your Stealth Rock's weakness. Or if I have good removal with Blastoise, pairing it with that weak, or Maushold Tiny Up, if I'm comfortable with it, or if I'm just not worried about rocks, then I can run like Leftovers and stuff like that, or Super Effective Berry, whatever it might come down to. In terms of defensive moves, I do get like Dragon Tail, I do get Thunder Wave. If it's like a fairy that I'm worried about setting up, I do get Roar. I get Taunt, so it does have great capabilities in that aspect. But at the end of the day, I think it is definitely way better to be a offensive variant with Dragon Dance, just to make the most out of Dragon Dance plus Moxie. Once again, very much like hard forcing a Pokemon that is 81 speed or higher to be Choice Scarf. Not only to deal with Gyarados at +1, but to deal with the elite speed that I have in Darkrai and Zamazenta, to where I'm already forcing a few potential items on my opponent week after week. Forcing a potential Lum just because the amount of status I can have, plus sleep type moves to pair with Bad Dreams. Forcing that Choice Scarf, forcing Rocky Helmet with Maushold, which we're going to get to shortly. Forcing potential protective pads because of Flame Body on Moltres. Like, already forcing so much prep to where they don't have like the freedom to do what they want without a specific game plan is very beneficial for you in draft, and I always want to highlight that. So very excited to use Gyarados. Base 81 is great as well, outspeeding a lot of just those base 80s. You don't have to worry about speed ties. And just, once again, the offensive capabilities. It really helped to run a Choice Band set as well 1 week with like Terra Flying. I think that'd be really cool. So we'll see. Moltres, very reliable glue-like Pokemon for a team. One, it's just a great all-arounder. Look at those stats, very solid. It can be very bulky, just like Lefable, to where very bulky on one side, to where it can make up for it in certain matchups. Obviously, we are 4 times weak to rocks, rock type moves, and stealth rocks, but we do have heavy duty boots, which we are going to run majority of the time for Moltres, in order to not take 49 or 50% upon switching. Since we are quad weak to those rocks. And 90 base speed tier is a perfect, like, in the middle between that 81 on Gyarados and that 101 on Sandy Shocks, to where those Pokemon that are base 100 speed or base 95 are not able to run like Adamant or Modest or anything like that. It does punish them to be heavily invested into speed and have less bulk as well, which is good. But yeah, pressure and Flame Body are great for like defensive capabilities. More than likely, running Flame Body, just the chance to get a burn on a Pokemon and really punish them from a physical standpoint is huge. Especially if I'm predicting a U-turn, we quad resist the U-turn, and then we have a 30% chance to burn them unless they have protective pads or a Lumberry, or they're a fire type, you know? But otherwise, I don't know why I'd make that play. But heavy duty boots are great on it. In terms of additional like items, once again, it's very situational, way more situational than Gyarados if I'm not too worried about Stealth Rocks. But You can run like Choice Specs, Choice Scarf, Sharp Beak, things along those lines to really help its offensive coverage. Because I mean, it's very strong. 125 special attack is nothing to be like sleeping on because it does have good coverage. Unfortunately, it does mean I do have to hit Hurricanes if I want to hit those strong moves, which I'm not excited about. Because I drafted Zapdos not long ago, and Zapdos was horrendous for me because I had to rely on those Hurricanes. It cost me a lot of games, so I'm hoping that doesn't come into play with Moltres. Because if I do want to just be like a reliable bulky variant, since I still have 100 base attack, I can just be Brave Bird. Like, I do have to be cautious of the recoil, but since we have Roost, some Pokemon are being cautious about hitting me because of Flame Body. I do have plenty of longevity, so. And having another, like, just reliable, like, glue pivot with U-turn, Tailwind option, Roar option, Burn option, makes Moltres very, very reliable. I wish it still had Defog, but it's fine. It's still a great Pokemon as a whole. And I feel like this type of Pokemon is honestly going to come more often than Blastoise. Even though we drafted Blastoise early for very important role and everything, Moltres is, I feel like, more likely to do more work just because of the amount of hits it can still eat and dish out heavy damage as well. So, but could be wrong because Blastoise does offer a lot of potential. But this is typically the type of Pokemon that I find myself using a lot more weeks than initially expected, and I have used Moltres in the past. I'm a fan of it. So. And sticking to Kanto once again, we do have Muck here as our grounded poison and another fairy resist. That's an important thing that Moltres was honestly considered for along with Muck that I didn't mention previously. I really needed a solid fairy resist, and that just really came down to drafting Muck, which, although it was only 5 points, very low, not as like strong or reliable as some of the poison types well up above it. Unfortunately, a lot of those poison types in the middle point tier, such as Overquill, Skuntank, Toxicroak, things along those sorts, they are neutral to Fairy. They do not help me. So, Muck is a very solid Fairy resist because it has amazing special defensive bulk and 105 HPs, 100 special defense. So, it can easily be made to take the hits. Can even be Assault Vest because it has amazing physical coverage and it does have base 105 on the attack stat. Does get access to Toxic Spikes this generation, which I absolutely love. I will say a grounded poison wasn't something that I felt like was absolutely necessary for my entire team. Because if you look at it, Steel type doesn't care. We have Magikarp Clefable as potential. Darkrai doesn't care. He has limited turns to break or win anyways. Blastoise does care, honestly. But my run heavy duty boots because it's rapid spin plus flip turn anyways for the most part. Sandy Shocks could honestly care less. We have potential Poison Heal and Breloom anyways. Immune. And it's like, if we had a poison anyways, they wouldn't have cared. So, like, a grounded poison wasn't make or break. It was more so just getting the necessary fairy resist, which just happened to be Muck, which was also a grounded poison. To be clear, if that wasn't clear, because I know some people were confused last time in the last draft of, oh, it's not a ground type, it's a poison type, you silly goose. Grounded poison, as in they are on the ground and they absorb the T-spikes. Any poison type in the air, such as Levitate Wheezing, or Crobat, even though I know Crobat's not in this generation right now, they are off the ground and cannot absorb T-spikes to where the rest of your team will still be affected. So, Stench is not really something I'll use, but it could be funny cheese one week. Sticky Hold is great if I really don't want to lose my item in either Black Sludge or an Assault Vest, which are typically the most common items you run on Muck. And then Poison Touch. Poison Touch is very strong for knockoff spam, just being able to get double the progress, kind of, to where I get a poison on them. Not badly poisoned, unfortunately, so it's just that gradual 12% chip. But we can get rid of their item and poison them at the same time. And then additionally, with Poison Jab, which is a typical form of stab for Muck, and if I don't want to risk the Gunk Shot miss, although Gunk Shot has that higher base power, which might be important for certain matchups. I have the 30% of poison on Poison Touch and 30% of poison on Poison Jab. So adding that up together makes it very helpful. I don't actually know the percentage. Don't ask me. I don't care. And we do also have Pain Split to help with longevity, which is very good. Not something we can run on those Assault Vest sets, but really bulky sets, especially if we pair it with Curse. Curse sets are very strong, more than likely on like Alolan Muck. Just because the Dark type stat is very beneficial for Alolan Muck as well. But Curse is still strong on this muck as well at the end of the day. So I'm boosting my attack and my defense. My defense obviously being one of those lower invested stats. Speed at the end of the day I do not care about. And then I'm just able to heal reliably between my Black Sludge plus Drain Punch because we're boosting our attack over time. Or we can run Pain Split if we're going for that, like longer win con. We're setting up against something that I'm not really healing much with Drain Punch against. I can't rest or run Protect, for example, just to get more with Black Sludge because it might allow them to set up for free, or I might get Encored, whatever it might be. Curse sets are still very viable in Muck. Disable situational but positive. Haze is something that's always brought pretty often with Muck, which is good. And another strong potential option in Memento to really help my setup Pokemon, such as Zamazenta, Darkrai, Gyarados, etc., can make it very easy for them to all get a free setup move and just potentially win from there, which is huge. So I've used Muck, I think, only once in the past, but it's a very solid Pokemon and something that you can still bring to a few games and does the work it needs to. For only 5 points, I feel like it's pretty reliable, to be completely honest, and not necessarily sad that I had to choose this as my poison type. Just when I had, my mind on Glamora, it's a little upsetting, but it's just because so many dang fairies, bro, are just poison types are neutral to fairy, and it's really unfortunate. So they were like, yeah, we only have the one weakness in ground. Okay, dude, my steel type is a doggo that also likes to fight. I can't have that. So, and funny name. And then Mousehold, we're sticking with the family of 4. Don't care about the family of 3 because we need the most play more fans possible for this. Never running Friend Guard. Only running Cheek Pouch if I want to be BM to my opponent and have some fire set in the final weeks. Otherwise, we're only running Technician. And we're only running Population Bomb. This is why you draft Mousehold. I want to be very clear. Shinchino is better. Chinchino was in the same tier. I should have drafted Shinchino. I ignored my front office. And you want to know why? Because Population Bomb is way funnier. And that's all it comes down to, folks. Plain and simple. Population Bomb is a funny move. And if your opponent overestimates it in build, they will get swept by Mousehold. Plain and simple. So, the biggest takeaway with Mousehold, unfortunately, for some reason, Population Bomb does make contact. So when we want to run wide lens majority of the time to make our accuracy 99 compared to 90, because each consecutive hit can miss. I can literally get anywhere between 0 to 10 Population Bomb hits is what I can get. Which we know, I'd rather not run that luck chance with me. I'm not known as a lucky individual in the Pokemon world. So, wide lens is what we want to run at the end of the day. But unfortunately, since this makes contact, we do have to be cautious of Rocky Helmet. And Rocky Helmet is something that can just wear down Mousehold and really just take it out immediately if we're wide lens. Because considering we more than likely be hitting every single hit, we can just drop. And it's very easy for them to throw that Rocky Helmet on their potential Steel type or Rock type that resists the Population Bomb, so it takes more hits possible for them to be able to be punished. Now, I can work around it to where if it's like I have maybe like screens up or something, and I'm able to eat a hit pretty well, and then maybe I'm able to lock them into something with Encore, allows me to set up for free, really boost my damage output, and then I can go Terra Normal. That makes Population Bomb so stinking strong to where I don't have to worry about my additional coverage. I can literally just click Terra Normal Population Bomb after 1 or 2 boosts, and I might just win there if it only takes, like the very few Rocky Helmet hits. But there's a few ways I can work around Rocky Helmet with Mousehold. One, I do have a few knockoff users like Muck, Clefable, Darkrai. The issue is I wish I had more knockoff users. I think if one of you guys really want to use Mousehold, I really suggest drafting it with Magnezone. I would love to see that because then the Steel types have to decide, do I want to get trapped and just run Rocky Helmet so I can still counter Mousehold, but I might not counter Mousehold because now I'm going to die to Magnezone because I'm trapped? Or do I run Shed Shell and I have to force Rocky Helmet on something else that's more than likely going to die to like 5 Population Bomb hits anyways? And then I have to have some form of priority to beat Mousehold. Like, I love that idea. I love it so much. Um, so the one way for us to get around it is, of course, running protective pads, but then we rely on the 90% accurate. So it's just like however I want to like work around that, because I mean we do also have Terra. So once again, we have that Terra Normal, like I mentioned, and then it's Terra Ghost and Terra Fighting. On Terra Ghost, we are immune to the fighting type moves that might hit us. We do have a Ghost type option to block Rapid Spin, which is nice. And then we also, deal with a few forms of priority and like Extreme Speed, Mach Punch, stuff like that, which is nice there. And then additionally, even though it's very unlikely, we could be, Terra Ghost and have that Stab Ghost option to do the most damage there. But more than likely, you just want to run Bite, because Bite is boosted by Technician and it's base 90 power compared to the base 80 that you only get out of, like Terra Blast, Terra Ghost, or Crunch from Mousehold. So just keep that in mind. But otherwise, we do get Tidy Up as a normal forward of hazard removal. We just have to be cautious because not too many Pokemon are switching on Mousehold, just because we're very frail and take a lot of damage immediately, to where if they hit us with one move, then even if that Pokemon with Rocky Helmet doesn't resist us, we're going to die to the Rocky Helmet hits afterwards. So just have to be cautious of that. We do get Thunder Wave for support. We do get U-Turn for momentum, all that good stuff. Super Fang to bring them down to half, which is an option for those Rocky Helmet nerds. To where if we bring them down to half and when I know I can kill them with like 3 hits afterwards, then I'm only taking 4 hits of Rocky Helmet. Because there's that one hit with Super Fang, which brings them down to half. And then the potential whatever hits a Population Bomb after, which Rocky Helmet only does so much. I believe it's 1/8 of your health. 1/6. Okay, yeah. So it's actually 16%. So 4 hits with 16 will only bring us down to only lose 64% of our health. So it's not the most ideal. I will say that. But as long as they don't have priority and like a strong Scarfer, maybe we got to tidy up like later on, we might just be able to win still, man. Like Mousehold is an absolute menace, and I really hope I'm able to make it work. And then lastly, we do have Terra Fighting just to hit those Steels and Rock types that might resist our moves otherwise. So we do have a boosted option in terms of now we have a stronger low kick if they are a heavier variant, because Steel and Rock types traditionally heavy, as we know. Or we can just run Terra Blast with Terra Fighting if they're like kind of a lighter variant, like Skarmory, for example, or like Corviknight. Those aren't traditionally heavy Pokemon, and they're also neutral. Where it's like I'd actually prefer Terra Fire, and Terra Fire is something I considered over Terra Fighting, but my front office convinced me on Fighting, which it was something I was on edge about anyways. I guess I have to say on the fence nowadays. I can't really say on the edge anymore. But because Terra Fire deals with those likes of Pokemon, doesn't deal with your Rock type Pokemon, but deals with those like neutral Steels. And then additionally, I can avoid burn chance. That was the other thing of going about that. But otherwise, I'm very happy. The team is very interesting. So at the end of the draft, I got together potential FAs just for something to keep in mind for the season, because it's not the type of team that I traditionally see me draft. I wasn't overall sure how I felt, but when I started doing builds, I'm like, okay, I get a general idea with it. One of my front office guys recommended I do imaginary mocks even before we knew the schedule, just to see how I felt about the team during that 24-hour grace period, which I can make free agents for free, aka not spending one of my like 5 transactions or whatever it is. And overall, I like the team, man. Like, it has a lot of great potential. I'm really excited to use certain aspects of these Pokemon. And even though it's a lot of Pokemon that I haven't used, and there's a lot of comfort Pokemon I have in the back of my mind that I could make free agents for, I'm very excited overall, and it has a lot of potential. And I feel like this is the type of team that I want to use this time around, where it has a lot more offensive capabilities. I'm not being stupid. Pedal to the metal, baby, just doing the most damage possible, having tried out, have all that progression, and like this can really just do it. Like, we can clap some cheeks and take some names with Bubby. You know what I'm saying, man? So I'm hoping to put some in the work, guys. Hoping to put some in the work. I'm not going to lie. Week 1 matchup, very, very tough, and I hate it. We're facing a very strong team. You guys will see it next week on the Play More channel in terms of the team builder and then the match. Team builders will go up on Friday every week. Just pay attention to the playlist and the community post for the team builder. We don't post it publicly in terms of national uploads, so we don't hurt our algorithm. Plain and simple. It's not very convenient for y'all, but we want these battles still to take off and see for other people so we can grow, our fan base, have more people fall in love with Draft League, etc. And then the battles will go up Saturday, both at 1 p.m. Eastern, so just be on the lookout for those. I have a positive attitude. Although I've faced only one of these coaches, and I'm only potentially going to face them in playoffs because I don't face them in the regular season. Endless, a good friend of mine, also been in the front office. He was part of my old leagues back in the day. And then another coach I've only faced in mocks in Pyro, which is part of my front office, who we're facing week 1. So it's a shame I have to face someone that already knows how I play. And I think they have a really strong matchup into me. Makes it pretty tough for a week 1 match. But going to try our best. I'm not going to cry at the end of the day if we start off week 1 with a loss. Week 1's always kind of, up in the air. But I'm going to do my best. I actually have that match in a few hours from now, so hopefully it goes well. I'm pretty excited about some of my builds, and I'm excited about this entire season. I'm kind of repeating myself at this point, so I appreciate everyone for listening in. Let me know what Pokemon you're excited to see put in work this season, and I'll catch you guys in future ones.